This is so good.
You got to go up through there
Okay.
a ways and then park your bike at the checkpoints down there and then come back here to eat. So
Okay.
we meet you up there.
Okay.
This video is the first of two parts related to providing and receiving individual rider support at the Paris Brest Paris. In this first video, I will describe my experience of receiving individual support that I received from my personal support team and my own experience at various checkpoints, and then compare these with experiences of that of other riders who have given me feedback on their Paris Brest Paris journeys. At the end of the video, I will discuss whether I will arrange individual support for myself in future Paris Brest Paris events, taking into consideration my current experience and the feedback I've had from other riders. In the second video on this topic, I will provide insightful and helpful feedback from the experience of actual supporters who provided support to individual riders at the 2023 Paris Brest Paris that I had the opportunity to interview after the event.
Yes, all good. Thank you.
I hope that by the end of completing these two parts of this topic, that you will be able to make an informed decision for yourself as to whether you will benefit from arranging individual support for yourself at the 2027 Paris Brest Paris.
So much. Oh, can you sit down there?
Pink.
Oh, okay.
But let's start off by defining exactly what individual support at the Paris Brest Paris is and look at the regulations relating to the provision of support for individual riders at the event. Individual support is assistance offered exclusively to an individual or a defined group of riders and is not available to the rest of the riders at the Paris Brest Paris. As per the current regulations, this support is limited to checkpoints only and may not be offered on the route between checkpoints. The maximum distance that this support may be provided from the actual checkpoint is a radius of 5 kilometers. The persons providing this support must use a vehicle that is registered with the Paris Brest Paris organization at the time of rider registration to travel between the checkpoints. This vehicle must also be adorned with a numbered decal provided by the Paris Brest Paris organization at the front and rear of the vehicle to allow easy identification by the officials of the event.
So your numbers, I thought you were 8'2" and
I'm 92, Jermaine is 82.
you're 8.
The vehicle must also be driven along a designated route that is separate and distinct from the route that is followed by the riders between checkpoints at the Paris Brest Paris. Failure to follow these rules may result in a 2-hour time penalty to the riders being supported, and this may be multiplied in the event of multiple transgressions.
So organized, and I think he's getting motivated for 2027. And Nancy rolls her eyes.
I chose to have individual support at the Paris Brest Paris, and these are my reasons for choosing to have support. I planned for the worst case scenario based on learning about other riders' experiences in previous editions. The worst case scenario that I imagined was heavy rain for the entire duration of the event, as was reported in 2005, coupled with extreme cold as reported in 2019, and long waiting lines for food, sleeping facilities, and mechanical repairs at various other editions. I imagined that this worst case scenario would significantly limit the places that I would be able to sleep or rest outside of the checkpoints, and it would require that I would have to carry much more cold and rain weather gear than I was prepared to do, and potentially extend the waiting time for support at checkpoints unnecessarily. My answer to this worst case scenario was to be prepared for any situation that I could imagine at the Paris Brest Paris. So I chose my cycling friends Nancy and Robert House to be my personal support at the 2023 Paris Brest Paris, based on their quiet efficiency, extreme attention to detail, their hyper-vigilant focus on the task at hand, their professionalism and experience at long-distance bike touring, and racing. I wanted the opportunity to sleep when I felt tired and sleep in a warm, comfortable, and quiet space. So I chose a large multi-seater vehicle that could provide the space and quiet environment that I was looking for. I also had multiple changes of cycling clothes available in case I was drenched in heavy rain, and warm clothing, a warm sleeping bag, and a sleeping mat to allow me the best possible sleeping experience. To circumvent the potential long queues for food, I also took a variety of hot and cold meals and drinks, various electrolyte mixes, energy gels, and wafers that my support team would prepare and package for me depending on my needs at the various checkpoints. To avoid queuing at potentially unsavory ablution facilities, I even took my own portable and personal toilet. In preparation for a mechanical problem, I wanted an experienced and qualified bike mechanic to be part of my support team, who had access to spare components of virtually any part of my bicycle. Robert fulfilled this role perfectly, as he had previously owned his own bicycle, sale, and repair shop, and was comfortable with servicing even the latest bicycle technology. I took every imaginable spare part from my bicycle, apart from the frame, a set of wheels, and handlebars. So essentially, I had enough spares to service a team of professional cyclists. I estimate that I probably had at least 50 kilograms of support supplies for the Paris Brest Paris, way more than I could ever personally carry with me on the bicycle.
But a much more efficient version than what I have.
Okay.
So that is Jermaine's bag,
Yeah.
because she's carrying most of her stuff.
Great. Yeah, she's very
Yeah.
self-sufficient.
Yeah, she's not self-sufficient. But she's got everything in there.
Okay.
So all you do, Ludiak, if you could just bring me the entire bag under the tree, I'm happy. I'll sort it out.
Having individual support with a dedicated motor vehicle was the only way I would be able to access the individual support that I anticipated for my needs. We first drove almost the entire support designated route in the days leading up to the event to ensure that the support team knew how to reach each checkpoint well in advance of my arrival. This reconnaissance also helped to make sure that they were familiar with the route and could avoid accidentally blundering onto the rider's route, where they could be assigned a time penalty. We then selected checkpoints at which we would meet, these being Verlaine, Ludiak, and Corhay.
Yeah, we're still coming up to the highway.
No, I'm going left.
Left.
And at each of these checkpoints, we identified landmarks that would help us to find each other. We also had multiple systems of tracking so that the support team would know exactly when we arrived at the checkpoints. We used a spot tracker GPS tracking system. We used the tracking system that comes with the Wahoo GPS device, as well as the individual rider tracking that is available on the Paris Brest Paris website. We had bought eSIM cards with almost 30 gigabytes of data that would allow for adequate communication and tracking for the entire duration of the event. We had also taken along a flashing light similar to that of emergency vehicles and a large Canadian flag to help identify the vehicle at the various checkpoints. I had access to my support team for the first 800 kilometers of the Paris Brest Paris, until I developed a problem that I had not anticipated, and this problem put an end to my 2023 Paris Brest Paris campaign. It was about this time that Jermaine also started to experience some of her own difficulties, and so I asked my support team to focus on helping her and to allow me to ride on my own. So for the remaining 400 kilometers, that is from about Ludiak all the way to Rambouillet, I rode without any support. But this allowed me to experience some of the unrestricted support provided to the rest of the riders at the various checkpoints. And so with this, I had the unexpected opportunity to experience both being a supported rider as well as being an unsupported rider. Now, before I relate my experience at the various checkpoints, I just want to make one clarification. When I chose to ride unsupported, I was well ahead of the rider bulge. And of course, being ahead of the rider bulge would significantly influence my experience and perception of the support that was provided at the various checkpoints. I made use of the sleep facilities in Villain and found the rooms to be quiet and warm. I think there were probably only about 5 riders in the room, and they were all deeply asleep, and there was no snoring or any other body noises. I bought food in Tintaniac, Fougeray, Villain, Montagnard, and Dreux, and I did not experience any long queues or unpleasant delays. I visited the medical facilities at both Brest and Fougeray and was offered immediate assistance without any delays either. I saw well-equipped mechanical services at almost all the major checkpoints, but fortunately didn't have to seek their services. It appeared to me that you could purchase virtually anything from an entire bicycle to various types of wheels and all components, including helmets and clothing, at each of these mechanical stops. I did use the sit-down toilet facilities at both Villain and Ludiac and the shower facilities at Fougeray, and found all of these extremely well maintained and operational. This is, however, quite different from the feedback from some of the other riders who were in the 90-hour group and who were probably caught in the rider bulge. At this point, I will relate some of the feedback that I received from 3 riders who were in the 90-hour group and who were kind enough to participate in the 2023 Paris Brest Paris feedback survey that I conducted in my previous 2 videos. Now, Terry is a 55-year-old male from the United Kingdom and who was a novice at the 2023 Paris Brest Paris. He compared the checkpoints at the Paris Brest Paris to those of the London event. He was not at all impressed by the checkpoints at the Paris Brest Paris, especially by the long queues and the lack of flavor in the foods that he purchased.
Thanks, man.
In contrast, he really appreciated the support from the local community along the route and would recommend others to participate in the Paris Brest Paris. He himself would consider returning to do the Paris Brest Paris in 2023, despite his rather less than ideal experience at the checkpoints at this year's event. Daniel, a 53-year-old cyclist from Switzerland who has successfully completed the Paris Brest Paris now on 3 occasions, also participated in the survey. He had previously completed at least 5 other randonneuring events in the countries of Singapore, France, Germany, Spain, and in Switzerland. He was in a good position to compare the support offered at these various events on different continents and across Europe. He enjoyed the food at the checkpoints, but described the sleeping facilities at Montagnard or Pêche as being quite Spartan. He particularly appreciated the friendly atmosphere of the people who offered support along the route and at the checkpoint.
Merci.
He expressed a motivation to return to future Paris Brest Paris events if it maintained its relaxed atmosphere and did not become too commercialized. Christian, a 57-year-old cyclist from Switzerland and a Paris Brest Paris novice, and who completed the Paris Brest Paris as his first ever 1,200-kilometer event, was very impressed by the checkpoints, and particularly by the patience and assistance of the volunteers. He describes the sleeping facilities at 4 points along the route as being quiet and appreciated the valuable wake-up service. He reports that the food at Kidiak was the best of the entire route. He thinks that there's a good probability that he will return for future editions of the Paris Brest Paris. So 2 American riders who started in the 80-hour group with the aim of achieving a Charlie Miller Award which requires completing the whole Paris Brest Paris in less than 56 hours and 40 minutes, also gave feedback on their experiences at the various checkpoints. Jeff is a 56-year-old cyclist who had not previously completed a 1200 kilometer, and Kevin is a 40-year-old cyclist who had completed at least 2 other 1200 kilometer events in the USA, one of which was the Cooley Challenge. They were both very positive about the conditions at the controls and described eating frequently at almost all the controls. Both Kevin and Jeff expressed huge appreciation for the friendliness of the French people along the way and the backdrop provided by the Randonneers USA. They both expressed a strong intention to return to future editions of the Paris Brest Paris. Now, I was particularly interested in how the riders in the 84-hour group would find the conditions and the nature of support at the checkpoints. And was grateful that Peter, who is a 51-year-old rider from Belgium, has provided some feedback. He had completed at least one other 1200 kilometer event in Belgium before participating in the Paris Brest Paris. He was happy with his experience at all the checkpoints and described the conditions as being perfect. He particularly liked the positive and encouraging atmosphere at the checkpoints and the relaxed and friendly attitude presented by the volunteers. He expressed a wish to see more toilets and shower facilities at the start and finish area in Rambouillet to accommodate the needs of the campers on the royal grounds both before and after the event. He also expressed a strong interest in participating in future editions of the Paris Brest Paris. So after reflecting on my own experience and the feedback from these 6 riders, it is clear that the support provided by Nancy and Rob was excellent and absolutely crucial to my attempt for a sub-60 goal. However, once I lost that primary goal and accepted my fate of just riding to finish comfortably, that high level of support became unnecessary. This is because the support that I experienced at the checkpoints was sufficient for my secondary goal, which was to finish within my allotted time. When comparing my experience with that of the 6 respondents to my questionnaires, there are some interesting findings. Although there was a trend that the riders in the 80 and 84-hour groups had a better perception of the checkpoint than those in the 90-hour group, this may not necessarily be representative given the very small sample size. It is possible that being caught in the bulge of the 90-hour group may cause some challenges with regards accessing support at the various checkpoints and cause long queues and delays, and perhaps even some decline in the quality of the services being provided. I think the decision on whether you need individual support in future editions of the Paris Brest Paris rests entirely on your individual goals. If you are aiming for a super fast completion time or perhaps even challenging the record, then you will most likely have to arrange some form of individual support. However, if you intend to just finish comfortably and enjoy the full Paris Brest Paris experience, including the amazing support from the French people along the way and at checkpoints, then you probably won't require individual support. This is because, in my opinion, the support at the checkpoints is of such a good quality that you will not need to bring your own support. This is especially true if you are at the fringes or ahead of the bulge. The new course design, in my opinion, also has been very effective at spreading out the field and preventing overlap of riders going in either direction along the course. I suspect that the support at the checkpoints will probably be expanded to reduce queues and delays and improve the experience for all riders, irrespective of whether they are in the bulge or not. I suspect that by providing riders with a better experience in the bulge, there will be fewer riders who would request individual support in future editions. This, of course, is also dependent on whether the number of participants in future editions remains similar or, of course, may increase. I would like to thank all riders who have completed my Paris Brest Paris questionnaires, as this has helped me to gain a broader appreciation for their experiences during the event, and hopefully provide you with a more balanced description of both individual and group support at the Paris Brest Paris. I will, of course, share the other riders' responses on other aspects of the Paris Brest Paris in future videos. If you've not yet had the opportunity to complete the riders' questionnaire, please have a look at it in the video description below. I also had the opportunity to interview two couples, Nancy and Robert House of Saskatoon, and Evelyn and Tom Gosnell of Tucson, Arizona, who provided support to riders at the Paris Brest Paris, and they had some very informative and enlightening comments and advice. I will document these in the next video. If you have provided individual support at the 2023 Paris Brest Paris to an individual rider or a group of riders, I would sincerely like to hear about your experience. Please send me an email to the address provided in the video description detailing your experiences and advice, and indicate if you are comfortable with me sharing this in the next video. Alternatively, please complete the supporter questionnaire linked in the video description if you prefer. Please remember to press like if you've enjoyed this video and subscribe if you would like to see similar content in future. Until the next time we meet, please ride safely.